from there on, you go become the ATF agent, and you were on 500 different cases. Is that pretty accurate?
I was an active participant in over 500 undercover operations. Sometimes on the point as the operative, sometimes as a team leader, sometimes as a cover agent, but I was directly involved. I had fingerprints on over 500 undercover operations.
And out of those 500 operations that you were working on, outside of the one with the Hells Angels, which we'll get to here in a minute, which one was, a couple of them you can say where this was absolutely crazy that I faced off over here. Here's what I worked on with this. I heard something about, you did something with the Rodney King trial, the Rodney King riots. There was a lot of different things you worked on, but can you share a couple of the stories with us?
Sure. The Hells Angels case, which gets all the notoriety and attention, is not my favorite investigation or my favorite case. I'm not even sure it's in the top 5 or top 10, to be quite honest with you. You mentioned Waco. I responded after the fact to the events at Waco. I responded after the fact to the Columbine High School shooting. I responded to the Rodney King riots. So I touched some historical events, nationally historical events during my career. But the reality of it is like, as an undercover operative, I bought everything from street corner dope up to cartel dope. I bought Saturday night special pea shooters in the park up to shoulder launched like anti-aircraft rockets. Everything from homemade PVC pipe bombs that some tweaker was making in his garage or his mom's basement up to servo-activated remote controlled C4 devices. I worked on home invasion infiltrations and murder for hire cases and gang infiltrations. Me and my partner infiltrated an element of Timothy McVeigh's, the remnants of Timothy McVeigh's crew that was operating in southern Nevada after McVeigh set off his bomb at the Oklahoma City, at the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, that were planning Oklahoma City Part 2. They had intended to blow up 3 Las Vegas casinos, the Mirage, the Treasure Island, and the Golden Nugget. Me and my partner infiltrated that scheme and diffused that plan. On another case, an undercover partner of mine infiltrated an element of the Aryan Brotherhood, and over the course of 100 days, bought 100 improvised explosive devices that members of the Aryan Brotherhood were building for us, so that we could use, to do murders and assassinations and intimidations. When I look at those 2 cases in the context of the Hells Angels case, I think they're more important because I think they had a significantly more important safety element to them. If these guys that were going to blow up these casinos in Las Vegas were able to carry through that plan, it's easy to imagine, thousands of people being injured and killed. This Aryan Brotherhood case where we were buying all these IEDs, they were selling those devices to us with the intention that we were using them to murder and maim people. Those are important investigations that didn't get a lot of attention, that didn't get a lot of publicity, that without a crystal ball to say what would have happened, but it's not hard to speculate that they saved lives and saved people from significant injuries.
How do you become an undercover and keep the lack of hate and distaste for them, and be able to make them believe that you're one of them, and still be able to, catch them committing a crime? How do you manage those 2 personalities?
I think you have to be a sociopath.
I would have to agree, because when I talked to Joe Pistone, Donnie Barasco, Joe Pistone, who was undercover for the whole the mob families, the 5 families that he brought down, 6 years for him to be undercover. I mean, that's a long time. He was married during that time to be able to do it. And I asked him a question. I said, how do you not flip? Like, you know, people can act, and even in Hollywood, you do a scene that's 30 seconds. You do a monologue, maybe like what Edward Norton did in American History X, it's 8 minutes. That's sick when somebody does that, right? But you're talking about acting for a month, 2 months, 2 years with your case with, how do you do that? How do you manage the two personalities of who you are and who you're acting to be?
The honest answer to that is not a flattering answer. It's not a hero answer. There's elements to this answer that I am ashamed of. I'm regretful of. I carry the guilt for. I wasn't very good at separating my undercover persona from who I was.
God.
I had played that role for so long and so aggressively that now, in hindsight, regretfully, my job evolved from what I did to who I was. And I became addicted to lying. I became addicted to the scam, to the hustle. And every time I was successful at it, my ego grew. And so, I'll tell you a little story. I think that's a good demonstration of it. I had spent routinely months and weeks away from home. And I came home one time and my wife told me, you cannot be gone for months and walk in the door here and talk to me and your kids like we're your suspects out on the street. In my self-defense, I told her, I am not a light switch. I cannot turn this off and on. People who do what I do for a living and treat it as a hobby or dabble in it or treat it as a gimmick end up dead. I'm not a light switch. And then her response to that was, I understand you're not a light switch. I understand you have to be on all the time. But when you come to this house, you better install a dimmer switch and take that attitude down a notch. And if you can't, don't come back.
Wow. She told you that.
And I had it coming. I had it at the time, it pissed me off. At the time, I was very resistant to it because I was so in that role. Now, stepping back from it, probably my biggest regret, my shame, my guilt from all this is the amount of battle damage that I put on my family trying to take care of other people's problems. You know, in reality, in hindsight, the people that loved me the most, the people that cared about me the most, my biggest fans, my biggest supporters, were the people that I treated the shittiest. And that is, that's a burden that I just have to carry.
That's I can only imagine. By the way, are you still married? Are you guys still together, married?
I am, by the grace of God. My wife and my kids are so much better than I ever deserved.
You're still married to the same woman as you were married to when you got into the game.
30 plus years now we've been married. Our kids are grown, and I'll tell you, I've given my wife a million reasons to throw everything that belongs to me at this house out on the front lawn and say, get out. And she has given me 1,000,001 second chances.
I mean, that's an angel right there. Whoever you married, if she's watching this, man, I salute you. Much respect for that, to be able to go through that. When I'm asking the question for you, and I'm saying, flipping and going which side, Heath Ledger is getting ready to do Joker. He's going to play the role of Joker, right? And he goes and asks Jack Nicholson, who played one of the Jokers in the past. And he says, hey, I'm thinking about playing Joker. I'm getting the offer. What do you think? And Jack Nicholson told him, don't do it. That is the one role I highly recommend you not doing it, because psychologically it messed with my head. And you got to realize Jack Nicholson's done what's the one he did? Cuckoo's Nest, the old movie, you know, playing a little bit off and nursing a grown man, nursing a woman, you know, that scene. And he says, don't do Joker. And this is coming probably one of the craziest actors of all time. And Heath Ledger goes and does it. And probably, by the way, I even have a statue of him over here. I mean, you got to, this guy goes and does the Joker and he crushes it. And then he comes out and we know what happens with Heath Ledger, right? And there's a scene where I think it's TMZ goes to the restaurant that Jack Nicholson's about to go into. Camera guy stands outside saying, hey, Jack, did you hear about what happened with Heath Ledger? He said, what happened? He said, they found him dead. He says, what? He says, they found him dead. He says, I told him don't play Joker. There's a scene. It's a very interesting scene when you look at this. How dark of a place did you go? If you were to say to the darkest of darkest places you went to, playing these 500 different events, you know, people you're around, the types of people you're around. If you were to say, Pat, I went to the darkest place, these three places were the darkest place it was. If you could do your best to paint a picture to us, what did that look like?
Well, I'll answer it this way. I have found from my experience that there's two types of undercover operatives. There are operatives that like have a costume that fits the role that they play. And they come to work and they put that costume on and then they inherit that personality and they become that person, whatever that gear or gimmick is. I was never good at that. I was just like, what you see is what you get. I talk to people on the street the same way I'm talking to you. I interact with people. I was not good at faking being someone, or at least having a personality other than my personality. But I will say this, when we look at the world of good guys and bad guys and good versus evil and whose side are you on? I found that oftentimes the good people are not always all that good and the bad people oftentimes are not always all that bad. And so, man, I have so many like character flaws and personality traits that are unflattering and things that I don't like about myself. And some of those I actually learned to put into play and to highlight for my undercover role. I have a dark side to me. I try to project positivity. I try to encourage people and promote people. But when I'm put in the right situation or when I'm cornered, like I can be the nicest, best guy in the world. I can also be the dirtiest, nastiest motherfucker out there. And being able to be those two people, man, I'm not sure that that's healthy or normal. But I played on that. I knew that about me, and so I used it to my advantage. I tried to treat people good. I tried to communicate with people in a proper way. But man, when you turned on me, or when you got sideways with me or my partners, or you put us in danger or whatever, oh man, I was the baddest cat on the planet.
Give me one example.
Oh my goodness, there's so many to pick from. There was a point during the Hells Angels case where some of the suspects had gotten some legitimate information, and our cover was compromised. Our cover was, it was in risk. It was like the truth was coming out, and the lie was starting to crumble. And I was confronted by some Hells Angels on that exact thing, on that exact information. Like, this is what we're hearing. And I got so nasty and spun it back on them and turned it around on them that they were full of shit, that they weren't hearing fucking accurate information. They knew me. I had proven myself time and time again over years and years, and cited events and cited situations, and got really frustrated and angry about it, to the point that these people came into this meeting accusing me and in a position of power, and I flipped that entire situation on them to the point when we left, they were apologizing.
You're July 24th. Is that what you are? Are you July 24th?
I'm a Leo, yeah.
Interesting. Now, let me ask you, if I was in high school with you, were you a tough guy? Were you somebody I didn't want to screw with? Was that still, were those two characters still there if I was in 10th grade with you?
No, like I didn't, and I don't carry myself like a tough guy. Like I don't walk down the street like looking for someone to punch
No,
in the head.
but let's just say if we're buddies, if you and I are boys and I'm your running mate, like we party together, we go to high school parties, we go with the girls, we play football. Let's just say you're the star, I'm the blocker, I'm the tight end. We're really, really tight, okay? Somebody says something to me and disrespects me. Were you ready to brawl or no? Were you more like trying to diffuse?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't and do not try to carry myself as a tough guy, but like don't put me in a corner, man, and don't box me in. I will walk away from a problem if I have opportunity. I will run away from a problem if I have an opportunity. But if you put me in the corner, like we're gonna get it on, and like you might hurt me, you might hit me, but we're all going to the hospital. That's just.
And you were always like that. You were always like that, even as a kid.
You know, my dad, who was a huge influence in my life as a young man, told me, you know what the nastiest, worst, most vile thing someone can say about you is? What's the most disgusting name you can be called? And as a child, I'm running through like swear words, vulgar names, right? He said, let me tell you what the nastiest thing anybody can ever say about you. S-O-F-T, soft. Never let anybody say you're soft.
I wrote this thinking maybe your dad said coward, but soft. I like that. Your dad said never let anybody say you're soft. Wow. That's pretty big. How old were you when he told you that? Was it
I was probably, 7, 8 years old.
Now, you said your dad was a carpenter?
My dad was a carpenter, and he was he kind of lived that same life. He was a very peaceful guy. He was a sweet man, but man, that dude was tough. He was tough, and he was not someone that anybody wanted to tangle with.
Jay, craziest thing you've seen, craziest shit you've seen ever on work. Craziest thing you've seen, right? Like witnessed right in front of you, not read about, but you witnessed.
One of the most disturbing things for me, I do not like dead bodies, man. I'm not. It's not my thing, right? I would not be a good homicide detective because I do not like dead bodies. We're working a cartel case with some pretty high-level narcotics trafficking, and one of the people we're dealing with got sealed up in a 55-gallon steel drum and left out in the desert. And when they recovered that barrel and popped the top of it off, this human being had become like stew, like soup in that barrel. And I was, that was like the sight of that, the smell of that, the thought of someone being sealed alive in a steel barrel and left in the desert, and the misery with the suffocation and all the things that I imagined went into that person's death. I was like, man, I don't care what you're doing, or I don't care who you are, man. Nobody's got that coming.
That's not a way to go. Sammy the Bull said, if I had one way to go, I'd want to get shot in the head. Is that what he said? He said, I'd like to get shot in the head. That's the way to go because you don't feel anything.
Lights out.
You do not want to go that way. What a way to go.